Matt Bernie, you're taking a look at an all-stakes pick four sequence at Laurel Park on Saturday afternoon. Races 6 through 9. It also happens to be DeFrancis Dash Saturday down at Laurel. That's going to be race number 10. But this sequence, all turf races, 6 through 9. Scheduled post time for the first leg of this pick four sequence is 3 o'clock Eastern. You can play it over on DRF Bets. Let's take a look at the all-along stakes. The way that I'm going to go through this, I'm going to list off a few horses. I believe if you played the entire thing with a caveman sort of play, it might be in the $72 range for 50 cents, but strongly would encourage anyone going through playing this sequence or any multi-race sequence for that matter to use DRF Ticketmaker. Emphasize your strongest opinions. Still want to wait and see how scratches and changes come through before actually going through and putting it in a Ticketmaker play. So I'll just give you kind of a broad brush view of how I look at these races and hopefully a couple of interesting plays that you can consider. The sixth race, the all-along stakes, I would use 3 horses, key in on 3 horses anyway. The 1, the 2, and the 5. The 1 is Lift Up for Michael Dickinson. This is a horse. She's cross-entered at Belmont Park on Saturday. I hope the connections choose to go here because I think she's overmatched at Belmont, and at the very least, she fits in here. Maybe she's not necessarily one of the most likely win contenders, but at 5-1, I'm drawing a line through the matchmaker, the most recent start. I think she was overmatched a little bit. You see Elysia's World is in there, Dream a while. Elysia's World came back to win next out, and we know look, when Chad Brown is represented in some of those stakes races, they're probably just going to be too tough for some of the other horses. Lift Up, the run 2 and 3 starts back. Those are the ones that make me think that she fits very well in a spot like this, and she has a victory over the Laurel Park turf course. The 2 horse is a horse that I highlighted on Out of the Gate this week. You can find that over on video.drf.com or the Daily Racing Forums YouTube channel. I made Esquisse my best bet for the weekend simply because the price is there, and I'm hopeful the equipment change for Graham Motion gets this filly over the top. She has always hinted at ability, but boy, she hangs her chance each and every time, it seems like, since she's gotten here to the States. The blinkers go on. She's 8-1 on the morning line. I don't know that she goes off at 8. But if she's in that 5-1 range, I think from an individual race standpoint, she's worth a play. But certainly from a multi-race standpoint, perhaps you get something closer to that morning line number of 8-1. So I'll use the 2 Esquisse as well. And then the 5 horse. I just think this is one that maybe you want to throw in. And again, from a ticket maker standpoint, perhaps this is more of a C or a backup if you're playing them in that fashion. Quick Witted is 12-1 on the morning line. I'm a little bit concerned that the yielding ground is really what this horse covets. You can see by that run, 2 starts back with the 91 buyer, which she went off and won by 6.5 lengths. You also can go back to October of last year at Laurel over yielding ground, where she goes and gets the job done in an N1X. I think she's probably a little bit better on ground with some give in it, or with substantial give in it, but at the end of the day, her form is just too strong right now to throw her out. And if you think that she can get somewhere in the mid-80, high-80 range as far as a buyer is concerned, she's certainly right there with a chance. So 1, 2, and 5 for me in the first leg of this pick 4 sequence. Let's move on to race number 7. This is the Laurel Dash, 6 furlongs on the turf course. Again, I'm going to use mostly 3 horses for the better part of my plays. The 1, the 6, and the 11. The 1 is Fielder. Fielder is a horse that is cross-entered at Parks on Saturday, so you're going to need to pay attention and see where some of these horses choose to go. This is, again, a horse that's just, the form right now is too strong. 2 victories in the last 3 starts, and the only loss came here at Laurel against a couple of the common opponents, but wasn't disgraced. Finished second, only beaten by a length. I think this horse fits in here from a tactical standpoint, has the ability to adapt, can come from well off of it, as shown in that race at Laurel 2-back, or can be much closer to the pace as he has been in those races at Parks most recently. So the 1 Fielder I think is interesting. The 6 horse, realistically, if Oak Bluffs runs back to the race from Penn National earlier in the year, in the Pennsylvania Governor's Cup, which he won at 2-1, he's probably just better than these horses. The problem is the 2 most recent starts have both been suspect. He hasn't picked his feet up at any point. I know he had a little bit of an excuse for that Parks Dash. He's probably overmatched and he didn't have a clean trip, but he was terrible in that Monmouth race. He's 10-1. The way that I'm looking at him, if he comes back and is something close to the Oak Bluffs that won that Pennsylvania Governor's Cup, he's going to be a major, major threat in a spot like this. Another horse, he probably needs a little bit more pace in front of him to really take advantage, but you know that he's not going to come from 100 out of it. He's probably going to be mid-pack throughout. 10-1, that was too much to sort of gloss over him. I think you got to at least consider Oak Bluffs in this sequence. And the other horse that I'm very interested in, I don't like the post. The post is going to be very, very difficult, but the 11 Clever Triad. Clever Triad is the horse that defeated Fielder in the most recent start that was at Laurel on August the 12th. The distance I don't think is going to be an issue. This horse really seems like the engine just starts cooking at about the 5.5 furlong point. I love the tactical speed. Again, the real question for a horse like this, breaking from that far outside post, what kind of trip are you going to work out? You're almost guaranteed to be giving up ground at some point. You just hope it's not too much when it's all said and done. So those are the 3 horses that I would mostly focus on for the 7th race, the 1, the 6, and the 11. Let's move on to race number 8. It's the 3rd leg of this pick 4 sequence, excuse me. Mile and a half, the Laurel Turf Cup, $100,000 the purse. 4 horses that caught my attention: the 2, the 4, the 9, and the 10. The 2 is Vintage Matters. Now, Vintage Matters, there's a real scenario where this horse, he's wanted to go all along. He wanted to go long all along. They finally stretched him out in that most recent start at a mile and a half down at Delaware in the Cape Henlopen. He finished a rallying second, only beaten by a head, and you can see the 3rd place finisher upmost. He went up to Woodbine to win a stakes race in his next start. Also, if you just need more evidence that additional ground is perhaps what this horse has wanted all along, go back to that run at Saratoga last year in July at a mile and 3/8, a rallying second, only defeated by 3/4 of a length by Voodoo Song. I can understand anyone that looks at this horse, though, and says he's 1 for 11 lifetime, and he's finished 2nd or 3rd on 5 occasions. Maybe he's best used underneath. Perhaps he is, but at 6-1, I want to find out. I'm going to use him, certainly. The 4 horse, Hello Don Julio, for Michael Dilger, owned and trained by Dilger. This is a horse, he's in great form. 4 consecutive triple-digit Beyer speed figures. He's been keeping good company. You see some of the names in there, the call provisions, the Highland Skies of the world. And then obviously you've got the Manhattan 3 starts back. From a class standpoint, he's the class of the race. He's in raging form. If he comes forward with another triple-digit Beyer, he's probably just going to be too much for the rest of this field to handle. He's a major, major player. The number 9 horse, Renown. Renown is a horse that I don't think he's quite what he once was here at the ripe old age of 7, but that most recent run in the John's Call, I thought that was solid enough at a mile and 5/8. He's always been a long-winded, long-distance type. He's done well in sort of peculiar predicaments in the past. I don't think he's one of the more likely winners. To me, he would be used as a backup just because 4-1 on the morning line, it feels a little bit light to me. He can certainly win, but I don't think he's one of the most likely win contenders. And the other horse that I'm very interested in, and I'm torn how I would want to use him in a ticket maker play, if I would want to use him as a main or as a backup, because realistically, the likelihood of him winning, he deserves to be a backup. But you get to that sort of push or shove moment where if you make a horse like Not in Charge, the number 10, at 15-1 on the morning line, if you make him an A or a main play and he connects, you've set yourself up for a giant, giant score. This is a horse, when I look at him, I say, okay, he's slow on paper. I'm not going to argue that. But he's another example of a horse that the longer they go, it seems like the better he has been. He's 1 for 1 at a mile and a half, but he's had success at other long-distance sort of races in the past. Go back to those couple of races at Belmont Park in October and September of last year, both of them at a mile and a quarter. He won one of them and finished 2nd by a neck. To me, this is the kind of horse that, again, you look at that pedigree, additional distance, this is what he wants. The question for me ultimately is going to come down to, how do I use him? Do I use him as a main? Do I use him as a backup? 15-1 on the morning line for the number 10, Not in Charge. So again, the mile and a half Laurel Turf Cup, I'm mostly looking at 4 horses, the 2, the 4, the 9, and the 10. Hopefully I'm alive going into the payoff leg of this thing. Race number 9, it's the Sensible Lady Turf Dash. 4 horses again that I'm most interested in. The 3, the 4, the 7, and the 10. We'll take them right in order. The 3 is, again, this is another horse. Not very likely. This one would be strictly a backup for me. Unaquai is the kind of horse that if you look at the most recent start at Monmouth Park, it was washed off the turf, draw a line through that. That's not really what she is. Then you're left with 2 pretty solid turf sprints, one of them at Delaware, one of them at Suffolk Downs. I'm not suggesting this is one of the more likely win contenders, but at 20-1 on the morning line, a horse that has a little bit of tactical ability, can get into the run early, doesn't have to come from way out of it. I think Unaquai is a little bit interesting if you want to use a backup and you're playing ticket maker. The 4 horse, Fire Key, 15-1 on the morning line. This is a horse for Pat Kelly I think is all dirtied up. Draw a line through the Smart and Fancy. There was a horse that had fallen down. There's a little bit of an issue there. Draw a line through the run 2 starts back. It was off the turf. This is not a horse that runs on the main track. 3 starts back in the Caress. Draw a line through that. That was run over an absolute bog up at Saratoga. Prior to that, you're left with a race off of a long layoff at Belmont Park on June the 20th, where she was defeated by a length, but she earned a 90 Beyer. If you think that she can get into the low mid-90 range, Fire Key has a giant chance here, and I think this distance is going to really work to her advantage, where some of these other girls, maybe it won't. Note that she's 7 of 8 in the exacta at the 6 furlong distance with 3 victories. I think Fire Key is very, very interesting in a spot like this. I think the 7 compelled, you could make a case that she is the most likely winner of this race, and you could probably make a case that she is one of the horses that a lot of people are going to hone in on for Tom Proctor and Glen Hill Farm. Gary Stevens has them out. I've always maintained she is better going shorter. She is not a router. She's not a two-turn horse. Whether you're going down the hill at Santa Anita, you're going 5.5 furlongs like she did earlier in the year at the Fairgrounds, I think she is a one-turn short sprinter. I think this is what she wants to do. And from a talent standpoint, in all likelihood, she's probably the best horse in the race. I think you have to use the 7 Compelled, certainly as a main play. And maybe you want to put many of your eggs into her basket. If not her, perhaps it's the 10 Smiling Causeway for Arnaud Delacour. Most recently, you've got that Bullet Workout, a half mile and 48 flat. The Turf Monster, she took on really salty older males, quality older males. You see the names like Pure Sensation and Rainbow Air and Vision Perfect in there. 2 starts back. Tough luck loser, losing by a nose to Way to Versailles in that Royal North up at Woodbine. 6 furlongs, clearly not an issue for her. She's 9 times in the exacta from 11 lifetime starts. 9 to 5 in the morning line. And again, a tough post, breaking toward the outside, post number 10. But you have to view her as one of the more likely win contenders in a spot like this as well. So if you get to the payoff leg, a few horses to consider, the 3, the 4, the 7, and the 10. But I have to be honest, the 3 and the 4, if you're looking for some value, you're looking for some big numbers to try to throw into your play, I think each one of them have puncher's chances in the Sensible Lady Turf Dash. It's a really fun sequence at Laurel on Saturday. You've got a number of stakes races. This sequence, 6 through 9, all turf racing, all stakes racing. Nice 50-cent pick 4 opportunity. Get involved, and then who knows? You hit that pick 4, you parlay that into the 10th race, the DeFrancis Dash, 6 furlongs on the main track. A great day of racing at Laurel Park. You should get involved, and again, you can do that over on DRF Bets. Scheduled post time for the first leg of this 50-cent pick 4 sequence, all turf racing, all stakes action. First post, 3 o'clock Eastern for race number 6. Good luck.